Hello and welcome back to my channel. I'm Alison. I write as Alison May, Juliet Bell and Ally Sinclair, most recently as Ally Sinclair, and my brand new book, A Season for Love, is out now. Alongside promoting that book, I've also been writing the second book in the Season for Love series, and that's what today's video is all about, book twos. Before we get into that, if you are interested in all things writing, publishing and author life, please subscribe to the channel. But for now, let's crack on with today's video. Book twos. Book twos are really tricky, and during a writing career, you write loads of them. You write your actual second manuscript, which may or may not ever get published. You write your second published book. You write second books in a new genre. You write second books in a series. You write second books for a particular publisher or editor. Second books with a new agent. Second books under a new pen name. There's an awful lot of second books in a writing career, and they can be really tricky. There's a freedom in writing book one, whether it's in a new genre, whether it's your actual first ever book, but there's a certain freedom in going into the unknown, and that can be quite exciting and that can be creatively quite interesting. Book twos very often come with a whole lot of constraints and pressures around them. So you've, maybe published your first novel and now you have to do another one and you're not entirely confident that the first one wasn't a fluke. You've written a first book in a new genre and you've managed to sell it, or you've self-published it and it's doing okay maybe. Now you have to follow that up. You've signed with an agent off the back of a first manuscript which they loved, and now you have to repeat the trick so that they will love what you write next. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the process of writing the second book in the season series. And this isn't the full process. This, if you like, is kind of part one of this story. Part two won't come until August when the book's out. But this is the process from signing the contract that says this is a 2-book deal, so one manuscript that I've already written and one manuscript that I'm yet to write, through to delivering that manuscript to the publisher. Now, that isn't the book that will ultimately be published. It'll go through at least 2 more rounds of edits before we get to that stage, but for now, this is where we're at. I've submitted the manuscript to the publisher on Saturday, and today is Tuesday, so I'm kind of 3 days after having done that. So I just wanted to talk you through the process from signing a contract that says I have to deliver a new book at the end of January, start of February 2023, to having that manuscript ready to deliver. Hi, so work on Ally Sinclair Book 2 has begun. Yesterday I officially cleared, I don't know if you can see this, but I will hold up so you can. This is my whiteboard where the book in progress lives, and it is officially clear, and I have got the very beginnings of some notes for book 2 up there. I've written an outline for book 2 already, which is very hazy and very rough, but that's gone to my editor. She's made some suggestions, but she's basically happy. So now essentially there is no excuse but to crack on and write. Wish me luck. Hello, so this is my kind of first update on the writing of book 2 on this contract. I'm weird compared with a lot of authors because I really hate the starts of new books. So I think officially about 2 weeks in to writing this book. So I've already done a little bit of thinking. I also made a start, then got interrupted because I got copy edits back on book 1, which is part of the course, and now I am really into trying to get my head down, words on the page, and I've got from now I've got about 8 weeks to try and write the first draft of this. Then I'll take a couple of weeks off, and then I will take about a month, just over a month, I've got to edit before I send it in. That month includes Christmas and New Year though, so it's going to be a slightly disrupted month. So right now, today, it is the 29th of September. It is just after 9 o'clock in the morning, and when I got up this morning, I was at about 3,400 words. I've just done an hour writing session with the London Writers Salon Writers Hour, and I'm now at, let me just check, where am I at word count wise now? I'm at 4,300 words, so I've done around about 900 words in that session. It was really hard work. 900 words in 50 minutes for me is not a good pace of writing. I would expect to be well over 1,000, on a good day over 1,500 in that amount of time. But at this early stage, when I'm new in a draft, it's like getting blood from a stone for me. I don't really know who all the characters are yet. I don't really know what their conflicts are yet, and the conflicts are what drive their behaviour, so I don't quite know how they're going to react in whatever situation I put them in. So it's like every sentence, every word is a grind. I have to kind of think about it, whereas later on in the manuscript, when I've got to know the characters, those things flow a bit more easily, and you kind of know how they're going to react and you know how they're going to behave, so you can just throw them into a situation and just let the characters lead the way. At the moment, I'm still feeling my way and writing my way into it, so hard work at the moment. When I'm on a schedule, I love a spreadsheet. Initially, I was supposed to deliver this book early January. The publisher actually suggested moving the deadline back, which was really helpful, initially to the 27th of January, and then we moved it back again because I was ill, but we'll come to that. So, sitting down in October, I already had 14,000 words, and I knew I needed to get to a draft of somewhere in the region of 80 to 85,000 words. So I made a little schedule, a little plan of how I was going to do that. I'm a spreadsheet girl, love a spreadsheet, and so put it all in a spreadsheet, sort of starting from the end of October, with the intention of writing a first draft over around about 6 weeks. Then slightly less than 6 weeks, actually. I'm trying to do some maths here. No, about 6 weeks. So sort of last week of October, first week of December, and all of November was the schedule for writing that book. And I made a spreadsheet, which I will show you on the screen, of how that was going to work. And I always give my spreadsheets conditional formatting, so that if I achieve my word target, the cells go green. I like a cell that goes green. It makes me very happy. And what you will see is that I started kind of here is where the serious writing starts, last week of October, and I'm doing okay for the first week, pretty good progress, and I'm not doing too badly for the second week, a little bit more sporadic, have a day there I don't make my target, but it's going all right. Because it so happened that I was writing this book through November, I also decided to do NaNoWriMo, which I don't normally do. And these are my nano numbers here. And you can see that for the first couple of weeks, so by the end of week 2, which was, pretty much 13 days into November, I'd written 28,000 words. So the goal is to write 50,000 words through the whole of November. So I was doing pretty well. And then everything kind of grinds to a halt. I get up to 47,000 words in total, which is about 30,000 words into Nano, and I just stop. And fully ground to a halt. Couldn't work out quite why, couldn't work out why it wasn't flowing, thought I had the shape of the story, thought I had the structure of the story, thought I knew what my main character's kind of arcs were, but I just absolutely ground to a halt. that. And so when I was aiming to have my first draft finished by the end of December to give me time to edit before I sent in, deciding in the start of the third week of November to ditch everything I'd written so far isn't ideal, but it happens. And it happens to me quite a lot. This is the second time that I've ditched in the region of 50,000 words. It was 47 this time, I think it was 52 the last time I did it. Weirdly, both of those were on book twos. The first time I did it was my actual second full-length novel ever. And this is book two on a contract. Book twos are the worst. But I decided that it just hadn't started in the right direction. There was too much that was just kind of conceptually wrong to be able to go back and edit and unpick. The best thing to do was to chuck it and start again. Now, when I chucked it and started again, that doesn't mean that none of those 47,000 words came back into the manuscript I submitted. Some of them did. Some of them were pretty much just copied and pasted straight in. Some of them were heavily rewritten and put back in, and some of them were ditched altogether. And that split was probably about a third, 30% each way in terms of what I was able to pretty much just copy and paste in with very minor tweaks, what kind of had the right people in the right place but they were doing the wrong things. So it was sort of, yes, I need a scene where those two people are in that place, but I need to basically completely rewrite it, and what was just ditched and never looked at again. And so the challenge I had then was to build up from nothing again at a point where I should have had like 50,000 words of manuscript. So obviously at this point what a person needs is a new spreadsheet. Spreadsheets make everything better. And this time around I actually made a scene plan. Now, I am not a big planner in terms of how I write, so I didn't make a scene plan where I sat down at the beginning and planned the whole book. I made a scene plan where I planned like the next 4 or 5 scenes, and then when I'd written those I planned the next 4 or 5 scenes, and then when I'd written those I planned the next 4 or 5 scenes. So that was how I was working, and one of the tools I was using to help me do that is a little bit more old school. I'm just reaching behind my camera to get these bits of paper. Is that I went through the whole draft that I'd thrown away and I made a list essentially of every scene that was in those 50,000 words. So that gives me a guide as to like what I've got available to cut back in. And then I went character by character and I made a kind of little really rough outline for what I thought needed to happen to each major character in the story. So those are incredibly sparse. They have like, per character, they have maybe 15 things that have to happen. And some of them are really vague. It's things like, probably need something with her family in here, question mark. Some of them are really specific. It's a romance, so some of them are like meets hero here. But it's kind of very broad and not cast in stone at all. And then I work that into a spreadsheet, working kind of 4 or 5 scenes at a time, locking down the next section of the book, writing that, next section of the book, writing that. And the reason I did that was because at this stage I needed to write this book really quickly, really quickly. So if you look, at the start of January I started a new word count spreadsheet. By that point I'd got back up to 37,000 words, 36,000 words, so I was about 10k short of where I had been 6 weeks earlier, and I really went for it. So over kind of 3 weeks at the start of January I went from 37,000 words up to 81,000 words, and sorry, actually up to 85,000 words. 22,000 of those words I wrote in the last 2 days of that schedule, because I hit a point where there was nothing for it but to just head down and write. And when I get close to the end of a manuscript, when I know exactly what's going to happen, I know exactly where I'm going to, I know how I get from here to the end, then I can write really, really fast. Unless you can achieve it and it's sustainable for you, I would say don't try and write at that pace normally. I definitely wouldn't try and write at that pace normally. It's not sustainable. I can do it for a few days, but then I just have to go and lie down in a darkened room for a while. So I got my manuscript back to 85,000 words on the 24th of January, which was already 2 weeks, a week and a half after my original submission date. By that point, I'd agreed a full schedule with the publisher initially to deliver the book on the 27th. I didn't manage that because over New Year, sort of between Christmas and New Year, and then over New Year itself, I wasn't very well. So I'd actually already contacted my publisher at the very start of January and said, is there any chance I could have an extra couple of weeks? And they were delightful about that because they knew I hadn't been very well. And they gave me a little bit of extra wiggle room. As it turned out, I only needed 1 more week rather than 2. So I did deliver. On the final schedule, I did deliver slightly early. I was a month late and a week early, which is, yeah. I think I get the credit for being a week early. We'll ignore the month late part. So between the 24th of January and the 4th of February, when I actually delivered the book, over that kind of 11 days, I was going through and just tidying up the manuscript. I didn't do a huge amount of structural editing because I'd had that scene plan to get the book into shape as I was going along. Normally, I do a huge amount of structural editing because normally, if I'd just carried on from where I was at that kind of 47,000 word point where I ditched it all, I would have had a much messier, much poorly shaped, much less well shaped manuscript, and I would have had to do an awful lot of structural editing on it. So it just depends a little bit how the writing process has gone, how much editing you need to do. There was still lots of stuff to sort out. I'd still managed to completely mess up the timeline by sticking an extra week and a half between the start of December and Christmas to what there ought to be. So I sorted that out before I sent it in. I hope my editor will let me know whether I sorted that out correctly or messed it up further. But I did get the book in. You get to a point kind of immediately before you submit a manuscript where you just can't look at it any longer. And that's a sign that it's kind of time to send it for someone else to have a look at. But for me, at that point, I always make a list of what do I still need to do, because it's so tempting at that point to just go, I can't look at this any longer, send. And then be sending something that isn't quite where you want it to be at the point that your editor sees it. One of the things I find really difficult and really frustrating as a writer is if I'm getting feedback from an editor, criticism from an editor on stuff I already know isn't right. So I try and fix all the things I know aren't right before I hit send. Not everything, and if there's stuff I still know is outstanding but I just can't quite get my head around how to do it in the time available, when I send into my editor I will send a covering email that says, I think it still needs 10% of this, I'm happy to do that in the publisher edits, let me know what you think. Because some things are a question of personal taste as well. So if it's something I'm not sure about, I will say to the editor, I'm wondering about this, what do you think? And we can have a conversation about it. So that was my journey from contract to submitting book 2. And I think for me, that was a kind of fairly normal journey. For lots of writers, the bit where I went, and then I threw away 47,000 words, will just have made their brains come out of their ears. And they'll think, oh my God, how can you get into that position? That's so inefficient, that's so disorganised. But for me, because I don't plan a lot up front, and if I do plan a lot up front, I find it very limiting, and I don't really want to write the book. For me, writing the first draft kind of is like writing the plan, and sometimes I write quite a lot of words to work out what I want the plan to be, and I've learnt that for me that's okay, that's just how I work. quite often, I mean pretty much always in fact, I will throw away the first sort of 15 to 20k and start again. It's unusual for me to get that far and throw out 47k, but it's happened before. It's the second time I've done that, thrown away effectively more than half a book and start again. And it is simply because that time that I was writing was the time that my brain was working out where this story needed to go. Other people will do that with a spreadsheet or with post-it notes or with a whiteboard or in their notebook before they start, and that's fine. But if I do that in too much detail, I just don't want to write the book. So that was my process to get to book 2. If you're currently struggling with your book 2 at the moment, I'm sending you love. Book 2s are horrible. They are irredeemable. There is no nice way of saying that. They're just horrid. They're just horrid. So if you are writing book 2 at the moment, good luck. And I will see you back here next week for another writing and publishing related video. So long.